Joe, your lecture is on dysbiosis in the newborn. Simple question. Is the amniotic fluid sterile? Is the placenta sterile? Is the whole fetus sterile? Is the meconium sterile? And is breast milk sterile? I think you gave a clear answer to this question.
No, it is not. I think that the evidence is becoming overwhelming that all of those sites are not sterile. At the very least, we have microbes that can be analyzed and evaluated by non-culture-based techniques, but many of these sites also you can use culture, for example, in the amniotic fluid, in the meconium, you can use culture techniques. In the human milk, you can use culture techniques to find live microbes.
So what are they doing? Why are they there?
That's a good question. Whether it's an epiphenomena or if it's something that actually has an effect, I think we're still in the early stages of determining this, but I think some of the information that we have suggests that if there are different microbes present, you can have a different effect depending on the types of microbes that are present. And so, for example, if you have in amniotic fluid a certain set of microbes that are associated with prematurity, you also see a higher level of white blood cells in the amniotic fluid and IL-6, which again adds to a piece of the puzzle that this may actually be a triggering mechanism for preterm labor in some babies.
And the mode of delivery, cesarean section is an issue you mentioned. Why is it an issue?
Well, it's a big issue because there are many places in the world where C-sections are extremely prevalent. So the C-section rate by WHO shouldn't be more than about 15 to 20%. And there are some countries that are actually achieving that, but then there are other countries where the C-section rate is over 60%. And so most of those, many of those C-sections are probably not done for medical indications, but very likely are being done for convenience. So if the epidemiologic data is true, that with C-section you have a higher rate of some of these diseases, celiac disease, type 1 diabetes, obesity, then I think that this could be a public health issue. And so we need to learn more about whether it's the actual process of C-section or some of the things that go around C-section, such as antibiotic use, the stress of C-section, the lack of breastfeeding early on, the lack of colonization by breast milk microbes versus the vaginal microbes. I think that those are some of the questions that we're still in the process of answering.
So when the mothers have a C-section, usually they get antibiotics.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
And this alters the microbiome
Yes.
of the infant? Yeah.
Yes.
And the most important question, what is the effect? What is the outcome? Why is it not good if the microbiome is changing?
So
or the diversity is changing?
Yeah. So if you don't have the normal microbes that are usually developed over time, the first few years, and perhaps even the fetal period, may be extremely important in terms of epigenetic changes and in terms of immunologic development. And so if the right kinds of microbes are not present for the immunologic development and the types of epigenetic changes that cause metabolic alterations of phenotype.
So which one? Which alteration of phenotype, for example?
Obesity, for example.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that was very clearly discussed also. And I think that is something that certainly we would be concerned about. The change in phenotype with type 1 diabetes, I think, is one that one would be very concerned about. And so certain types of microbes that produce Butyrate, for example, butyrate is highly epigenetically active and can modify histones. And if you have microbes that are not producing enough butyrate, for example, I think that that can lead to some interesting phenotypic changes that may relate to the development of type 1 diabetes.
So the message is back to natural way of birth, yeah, of delivery, and no antibiotics if possible.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
back to nature.
Yeah, and it's always if possible, okay? Because there are some C-sections that are absolutely required, and there are certain situations where antibiotics are absolutely required. So we can't say that we have to get totally back to nature without antibiotics, without C-sections. They are certainly indicated in certain situations, but we have to be careful.
Thank you very much.